On his first conquest to find gold, the Christopher Columbus-led Spaniards stumbled upon the islands of the Caribbean. They discovered the island of Jamaica in 1495, but was disappointed in the lack of gold on the island. Jamaica was then used mainly as a military base to supply colonization efforts to the mainland Americas. The occupation of the island lasted until 1655. During this period, they made the capital city, Villa de la Vega, known today as Spanish Town. The Spaniards needed labor to develop their settlement on the island, so they enslaved the natives known as Tainos. They also had slaves brought from Africa, known back then as the Maroons. The Maroons would escape to the mountains and form their own settlement, followed by the Tainos. However, most of the natives died from diseases brought to the island by the Europeans. In May of 1655, the English soldiers landed near the capital city of Spanish Town and overwhelmed the Spanish troops occupying the area. Subsequent battles took place to regain control of the island, such as the Battle of Ocho Rios in 1657 and the Battle of Rio Nuevo in 1658. But the British forces stood strong and managed to overpower the Spanish troops. The British gained formal possession of the island in 1670 through the Treaty of Madrid and went on to cultivate a plantation economy on the island. They sent indentured servants and prisoners from England to act as the laborers on the estates throughout the country. And approaching the 1700s, enslaved Africans were introduced to the colony as the predominant labor force on the plantations, planting sugarcane as the main export. At the beginning of the 1700s, there were approximately 45,000 slaves, but by the end of the century, the number increased to 300,000. As is known throughout the West, the treatment of the slaves were inhumane and led to several uprisings. These were the First Maroon War from 1665 to 1740, which the Maroons won, and the Treaty of Pacification with the Maroons was signed, allowing the Maroons to run their own town with British supervision. Tacky's Revolt in 1760, which led to the death of Chief Tacky by the Maroons and the suicide of his men. The Second Maroon War, which lasted from 1795 to 1796, resulted in the defeat of the Maroons and breach of the Treaty of Pacification. The Maroons were ordered to return all slaves to the Crown, and some Maroons faced deportation to the Canadian province of Nova Scotia. The Baptist War from 1831 to 1832, which led to the abolition of slavery. And thus the slaves were emancipated on August 1st, 1834, due to the constant conflicts across the plantations and its high cost to the Crown. Morant Bay Rebellion followed in 1865, resulting in the death of Paul Bogle and George William Gordon. The system of governance in Jamaica leading up to 1866 was that of the representative assemblies, where the Governor-General made all the governing decisions on behalf of the Crown. But a Crown colony government was subsequently adopted. This form of government was still exclusive to the elite planters, but included a legislative council voted for by the elitists as opposed to the governor selecting the council. All final decisions regarding the colony was made by the Crown. During this time, the English Parliament saw it fit to allow the slaves and the descendants of slaves to acquire an education in basic literacy and numeracy, mainly through the church-owned schools. However, the infrastructure and facility across the island could not support the edification of all the slaves and their descendants, so the vast majority only got a partial primary education, if any at all, with only a few matriculating to the secondary level, mainly those belonging to the upper middle and higher class families. For the lower class peasantry, their main roles were still to keep the farms going, as acquiring a higher education was extremely hard due to its high cost. This system continued decades after emancipation. Heading into the 1900s, the lives of the slave descendants had hardly improved. They were still living in poverty, surviving mainly on farming and low-skilled jobs. And to add insult to injury, indentured workers from India and China were competing with the locals for the other low-skilled jobs.